Alright guys, welcome to the next bootcamp episode. Let us see. Let me find this worksheet. It's buried in my history here. Oh, I don't know where I put it. I think I accidentally closed it actually. Bye bye. Let me find this thing. Alright. Thanks for bearing with me. Alright. I accidentally closed it and I had to find it again. So, alright, we've talked about physical balance, financial balance. Let's talk about intellectual balance. So numbers 13 through 18. And that's going to be purple. You're going to color it in purple. Number 13, I enjoy new skills and information, learning new skills and information. I don't know about you. I do like learning new skills and information. I would say the times when I don't like it are when I kind of need to do something that I thought was going to be faster than the process actually ends up being. You know what I mean? Have you ever had those experiences where you're like, oh yeah, like I'm going to learn this or I'm going to do this? Like an example. The other day on Sunday, I was pretty excited. I was like trying to think of something new that I wanted to do, and I was like, let me try live streaming. Let me try live streaming on Kick. It seemed like an interesting thing to try, and it's Tuesday at the moment, and I still haven't been able to fully set it up. I think my audio works, just my video doesn't, and I don't really want to play around with it too much because I had a Zoom conference meeting that I had to get on Monday, and because I've been screwing around with my mic and my video, on Sunday, I kind of jumped into some other weird setting, and so on the fly, I had to with my foggy brain on the fly, I had to remember like why would it not be working, and now I'm like fumbling around when the meeting's starting and stuff, and like we were kind of on a time crunch, and I was like, dang man, it kind of makes me look not too prepared. And I did test it out. I tested out the audio sound. I tried to test it out before, um, but for some reason, once the meeting started, it just wasn't working. I eventually got it working, but it's stuff like that where it's like, I like learning stuff, new stuff. I really love to learn new stuff actually, but when it's like that, where I'm like kind of stressed out having to learn it or learning it on the fly when I'm kind of like in a rush, you know, um, or say like if I was trying to like withdraw money from a certain like Uber Eats account or something like that, if I go do deliveries and then I'm trying to withdraw money and then all of a sudden I can't withdraw the money because I need to set up some other thing, and then it's like you got to learn how to do that and talk to customer support and like or like the support line and all. Like sometimes you just have stuff like that where you're just like, man, like I want to learn stuff, but it's like in a way it kind of sets you back either like financially or you know with your time it sets you back, or like you're trying to like problem solve and troubleshoot, and it's like it takes it from something where I'm like, oh, I want to try this new creative avenue to now I gotta like learn all this stuff about how to do this on this computer because I just it's not working out you know, like, so that's where I would say I get stuck, where I don't like intellectual things, where sometimes it's like I just want to do this creative process and like use these apps and like do something fun and like see what happens, see if there's an audience that's interested, see if this is something that I can use maybe to promote like different things, podcasts, like provide content in a different way, learn about it more. And then it's like, I'm spending 2 days. Now it's going to be a third day trying to get this video part working. And I think there's a problem with the server connection. I really don't know. I'm just like, I don't want to deal with this. You know what I mean? Um, but I do like learning new skills and information. It's just like once I solve the problem, usually it's like, oh, this is a thing of the past. But lately, I've been having a lot of technical things that I'm learning, and I like it, but it's like it's a little mentally taxing when I can't just go into a software and just use it right away. I've had a lot of those experiences lately, with learning some different software I need to learn as well, as a necessity. So it's like that can be a little difficult. Um, I have positive thoughts for number 14. I have positive thoughts, low degree of negativity, and cynicism. For me, that depends. I have to catch myself. Um, so what that looks like is, you know, not always thinking about the negative or what can go wrong. But I do kind of have an analytical mind, and I do kind of think a lot about. I think I would say I think about both sides, like what can go right and what can go wrong. But I do get more concerned about what can go wrong. So, um, I want to say I have a negative. I don't know. Maybe when I'm with myself, I have a negative mindset. But when I'm with other people, like if other people like tell me about their lives or what goals they have and plans they have and stuff, I'm not usually like trying to shoot it down and be like, you shouldn't do that. Like if I have a friend who's like applying for a new job or something, or school or something, I'm not gonna be like, you shouldn't do that or whatever. Um, if they ask me for advice, or if I think, I mean, this is something that I kind of struggle with, um, because sometimes I can see that people might be jumping into something that, you know, might be like they might not know the reality of it. Like, for example, if I knew somebody who was like, you know, I want to go and work in the field of psychology right now, or like, I just commented on a video not that long ago, like earlier this morning. I commented on a video about, um, what was it about? It was about, um, I guess the first part of it was about a person, I think, about Dave Ramsey talking about Steve Harvey owing like $25 million to taxes or whatever, and then someone else was clarifying that the accountant was the one who messed up, and it wasn't necessarily Steve Harvey's fault. And then the next segment went into somebody talking about like how they work in social work, and only make like 30,000 something dollars a year. They're 23 years old. They are, about to have a newborn. The husband works. I think together they're bringing home, I think the number was like 57,000, plus she has like $60,000 in student loan debts. Um, and they're struggling, because she doesn't want to work because she doesn't like her job. I think I put a comment on somebody's video about that, saying, I worked in the field for a pretty long time, and I think, yes, people go into it wanting to help people. That's usually that's the best type of worker. It's like you want to help people, but a lot of times what you don't know is all the other stuff you have to deal with, like the fast pace, the fast paced environment, the people, the types of people you have to deal with. Like mental illness is not always, I mean, it's rewarding to work with people who have severe issues, but it's also not always rewarding because sometimes their severe issues come out onto you. So if you never like people screaming at you or trying to manipulate you or being around people, like it's rare. In my experience, it's been rare, but it's not easy. Like it's not easy work. You're dealing with people's issues, deep rooted psychological issues, and you're trying to help them and get them resources and get them on track to where they can like reach their goals and kind of feel better emotionally, and be able to cope with things better. And you can only try your best to a certain extent where, after a while you might be overextending yourself in this field, you know. So those are some things I mentioned, not in that many words, but it was a pretty lengthy comment, just kind of like putting it out there, that, this is the part of the field that people don't really know. It's like, yes, I want to help people, but you don't know that it's going to be stressful dealing with certain types of people. Depending what type of site you're at, you've got people crying in your office, you've got people having panic attacks in front of you, you've got people with other physical health issues. They might be having seizures, they might have some issues with walking, they might be lashing out in anger, they might be talking to the wall, like, and you're trying to like do an assessment and there's somebody just like shuffling papers on the floor of your office, like rambling on about some other thing, and you're just like, I need you to focus so we can do this. You might be dealing with clients that are manic and they talk so much and so fast about nothing that you even need to talk about, and it's like, how do you even like work, with that? And it's 8 hours or more a day, and the amount of paperwork is insane, and the amount of, you know um stress that you have to deal with is insane. On top of all that, you might have bosses that can't handle the stress levels of the things that are going on every day in their clinic. And you might have bosses yelling at you and leadership yelling at you, even though you're trying your best. Some of the people that you work with aren't able to manage their own issues. And so, that's, I would say, like, maybe that is a, an example of how I would be negative if somebody I knew that was close to me was telling me, like, yeah, I really want to go into this field. What do you think about it? I'd probably tell them all that stuff too, because I feel like that's the stuff they don't really tell you in school. They don't tell you about, you're going to be getting underpaid for a while until you get licensed. You're going to be overtaxed. You're going to need to know how to manage your own day to day and have a method that's not just go out and party and drink after work. you know you're going to have a method that's sustainable for multiple years when you're making a little bit of money doing a whole lot of hard work. And people don't talk a lot about emotional hard work. Like, we see people doing construction or people working in physical labor jobs, and it's like, okay, they're doing physical hard work, and you can think about, oh, if I got a job like that, if I go home, I'm going to feel physically just like hurt and tired and sore. And you see people doing other work where they're just like thinking really fast, and it's like intellectually just like the speed that you have to work at. It's like that would be really tiring to work in these fast-paced environments. And then you see other, like, I think in mental health you don't really see how emotionally difficult it might be, because a lot of times people kind of have to put on that brave face. Like, you're rarely going to have a therapist that you meet with that's like in the middle of like an emotional breakdown. Usually they're not going to come to work, or if they do, they're going to be late, or they're still going to work with you, but you know I don't know, like, it might not be I don't know, it might not be um, it I don't know. It might not be so obvious that they're struggling. Um, and a lot of people who take on that kind of work actually have a lot of capacity to deal with that kind of stuff too. So they're able to push themselves really hard. And I don't know if that's a good trait or a good quality, but when you think of it, a lot of people who are able to go through grad school and do all this kind of work, it's like you have something about you that can push past the pain of not wanting to study, not getting enough sleep, not being able to exercise enough. Like you have something about you that can function and push past that a lot of times and live an unhealthy lifestyle, for the sake of your career. A lot of times people have that. I'm not saying that's only in that field of mental health, but I've noticed that a lot of people seem like they get too overwhelmed and too stressed and they don't really know how to manage it because they can function or they feel like they're functioning. But then, yeah, if you get to a point like that lady where she was saying that she doesn't want to work anymore because of it, and people are yelling at her at work and stuff, it's like, yeah, you need to find either another work environment or, get help or find, a different field, or find something that works. But I'd say that's where I'm negative. Like when I start talking about the mental health system, I I'm not cynical about it, but it's like if somebody really wants to know what it's like, and especially if they were asking me about a previous work site that I was at or something, I'm gonna tell them. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna like. Of course, there are far more positive things, which is why it stuck around for so long. But I mean, certain stuff like that, or when it comes to like maybe certain people that I know, not a lot of people, but there might be a couple people that I know where I might be I might have a bit of a negative opinion or a negative experience where I'd be like, look out for this person. They're not really on your side. They're really gossipy. They're probably gonna throw you under the bus in a bad way. Um, you know, I would say, but I feel like I'm realistic. I'm not like embellishing, and I'm not, I'm just telling people things that they wouldn't know, like to try to protect them. And I don't know if that's being negative, but I'm not just going around telling people stuff like that. But those would be areas where if I knew someone going into those fields or whatever, I would probably be like, hey, look out for this. Just keep an eye open. 15, I am generally satisfied with my vocation slash major. At the moment, I like what I'm doing. The route that I'm going. It's a route I've been wanting to go into for a long time. Um, Outside of mental health, it was something that always has interested me. So, yes, I like it. I'm, the learning curve is pretty steep and it's ever changing. I feel like in mental health, it's kind of like there's a very well established method that you go to school and do things this way, and it's kind of easier to get placed because there's like this whole school system that backs it more. I think when you're doing like digital marketing related things, it's like you can go to school, but things change so fast that the textbooks aren't going to keep up with the current trends. And you know, like I think Graham Stephan mentioned um, when he was talking about his iced coffee, uh, his coffee company called Bankroll Coffee, that used to be called, I think it used to be called uh, 6 cent coffee or dollar coffee or something like that. I don't remember the name that it used to be called, but um, they changed the name to Bankroll Coffee, and he was talking about, you know, how when he has this company and they were making a profit, and then they were breaking even, and um, he's basically stuck with like I guess having to uh, I guess having to decide what to do with um how do you say this? Like he's trying to decide what to do um with his coffee company, and he's realizing that it's, you know, it was costing him a lot. Like something happened with the with I think he said like an iOS update or something that kind of messed things up with like ads, like the ad tracking. I don't remember which apps it messed it up for, but I think he said like Facebook and TikTok or something like that. Like some of the ad, and ad spend is like more expensive, so they were like losing money on the ads and stuff like that. Like things like that happen, when you're working in like a digital space and you have like a company that's online, and you might not have like a physical store where people can go in and people are buying stuff off your website, and you are promoting your products with ads and all these kind of things, and you're just like, oh well, there's this whole process is going on in the background. It's like, you know you can all of a sudden, like something changes and you're losing money. It's happened with people who were using Spotify for podcasters. Like all of a sudden, like, you know, you're not making money anymore because they decided to change something about the partnership programs or the ambassador programs or whatever. I talked about it before too, with Medium, with blogging. It's a small fee, but you do have to pay a fee to actually be able to make money now, like whereas before it was free. And so things do change, and I think that is kind of different. Um, I think in the field of mental health, like in psychology, you don't just like come into work one day and then it's like, oh, the algorithm changed everything, and so we can't work like this anymore. It's like you still do the same therapy, you still get the same pay rate. It's not like something changes overnight and it's every few months or every year or something. Something is changing in a major way where you have to just like completely adjust to it. Um, that is kind of like where I would say, yes, I'm satisfied, but that is probably the hardest part, is like trying to keep on top of things and keep track of things and all that. Um, 16, I commit time and energy to professional growth and self development. I'm saying I do. I mean, or else I wouldn't be doing this. Um, this boot camp, it's not just for you guys. I do these things for myself too. It kind of gets me to think about it. Um, I'm actively talking through it as I'm walking through it. Um, I'm not, hiding it necessarily. Like I'm not talking about all the like gory details of everything, like going too much into depth. Um, like I do have my own, personal things that I like to keep to myself. I'm not trying to like talk about every single detail of my life on the internet, but I do try to be transparent and like, you know, like I'm not gonna make it sound like I have it all together or like everything about me is perfect, because it's not, obviously. I mean, if you've listened to any of my podcast episodes, like you can listen for like a week and you'll find out that I'm not perfect, like even for like a day, and I'm not, it's not really my goal to be perfect, but I'd like to improve. And I would say that, yeah, like I'm a big believer in, self improvement, professional growth, um, self development, self discipline, but also compassion and not being like so hard on myself that I'm not like, I don't want to like do harm to myself. Um, but when it comes to professional growth, um, it's really hard to switch careers. Um, I mean, the field of psychology and all that kind of stuff just naturally, it interests me, it fascinates me. I get it, I understand it, it makes sense to me. Um, maybe because of how I was raised and the types of dynamics I've dealt with in my life, it was just easy to just kind of like, oh, I get this. I understand why this person is reacting this way. I understand what it is that they're lacking that they could kind of need, you know, like when I would hear people talk about like all the neglect they experienced in their lives and all the people they currently have in their lives that they feel like are just trying to take from them, it's like I have to ask myself, what are you doing for yourself? Like, you got to take care of yourself. How can we get you to focus to take care of yourself? You're important. You deserve, to, have your needs met too. And are you getting those needs met? And if not, what can you do to get those needs met? I can see that, I can see that people have the ability to do for themselves what they need, but they're not doing it, and no one's ever told them, you know, it's okay to, you know, not give in to what people want you to do if you don't feel like you can do it or if you don't feel like you want to. It's okay to say no to people, you know. I kind of have this rule with certain people who like to try to borrow money a lot. Well, I'm like, I'll give it 5 business days, almost like a week. Not like as a game, but I'm just saying, like, most people will find another alternative method of getting money within 5 days without using you. You know, if you don't want to give the money or don't want to part with that money for an indefinite amount of time, just be like, hey, you might need to find something else. It's Monday now. I might be able to see what I can do partially by Friday, maybe, but try to see if you can work it out, before Friday. Most of the time, people work it out and they'll, you talk to them Friday and they're like, I found another alternative. It's like, okay, you know, I don't have to lend somebody $3,000 that I don't want to lend them and feel bad that they need the money and feel guilty that I didn't want to give money that I did have to give or whatever. You know, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be involved with it, but um, I would say I do commit time and energy, um, but I guess the issue that I have is not knowing exactly which direction to go all the time. I've followed certain plans. Some of them didn't really work exactly to the T like I thought they would work. And then I was like, well, now I got to find some other avenue. And so I'm trying to find some other method. And it's like, okay, this is taking a while. Um, and some of it is just not motivating. We all know most of us hate turning in job applications. That's never really fun. Number 17, my work is stimulating, rewarding, and reflects my values. Um, yes. For something to be stimulating, it kind of has to like pique your interest. Um, Not all the time. I mean, I think there are always things that at almost any job you're not gonna like, right? I'm not like the biggest fan of Uber Eats delivery work. It's not fun, it's not stimulating, but I mean, it's easy money. So it's like, it's rewarding in that it pays right away. But it's boring and it's dull, and it's like, I don't want to do this. And you do have to come out of pocket for gas that costs a lot of money. It's gone down, but it does cost a lot of money. Something rewarding, things that reflect values. I'd say when I was working in mental health, it definitely reflected my values. Um, the digital marketing space, it reflects my values, as in, I do believe that people can, make a business for themselves and kind of take what they know and use it for the greater good. Um, I've I listen to all kinds of finance content. I got into listening to Rabbi Daniel Lapin, and he talks a lot about uh, like from a Jewish perspective, how people are um, benefiting, and he gives this example about like peddlers in his grandfather or great grandfather's days, how people would be like door to door salespeople and they would do really well, and it was different back then versus now when you have like telemarketers and stuff. But it was different. It was like a whole hustle back then, and but he talks about how everybody was benefiting. It's like he gives this example how he bought this table. Like he goes to someone's house and they're like, oh, I'm trying to like wait for this other company to come. Not him himself, I think it's like his grandfather or somebody. He goes to somebody's house and the people there have this table that they're like, oh, I'm waiting for these other people to come pick it up, and I'm gonna pay them $5. And he mentions, okay, well, what about I pay you $10 for this table? And maybe it had some problems, and so he gets to the hardware store, fixes it up a little bit, puts a little money into it, so he's $10 into it with a couple extra bucks into it for repairs. And then he finds this other family who's going to go buy a table for a wedding, and they're going to pay, I don't remember the amount, but say they're going to pay $25, $30 for a table brand new. But he's like, on my wagon, I have this table that I just fixed, brand new repairs, I bought it used, I'll sell it to you for 20 bucks. So he's a little under $10 in profit. And he kind of mentions the process. The first people that he buys it from, they make a profit off of selling him the table. He makes a profit off of selling it to someone else who needs it for a starter piece of furniture as a newlywed couple for their new place. And it's like everybody wins in that situation. The couple who was getting rid of the table wins, he wins, the hardware store wins for getting his business for the products he buys to spend repairing the table, and the people who needed it for the newlywed couple, they win. And like that's kind of how I see it too. It's like if as long as everybody's winning, you're kind of good to go. I don't really believe in exploitation, but as long as everybody's winning, you're good to go. I um, but I like studying his um kind of what he has to say about things, finances and work ethic and things like that. Um, I think it's good to read books, and like kind of going back to 16, it's kind of good to read books. Uh, I've been getting back into the Four Agreements. There's some other books that I am going to be getting into, or even just like doing things like this, like worksheets and things. Like you can kind of really develop like some kind of serious plan and kind of see where things are kind of maybe not so strong, or maybe where you're putting in a whole lot of energy, and maybe that's okay for now. Like maybe you're like, this area is kind of good, so maybe I need to move on to some of this other stuff that's like that I'm not doing so well, and like not neglect the other stuff, but some stuff you're gonna more easily be able to kind of handle and balance, whereas other stuff is going to be more difficult just naturally, and you're going to have to develop skills to be able to maybe be less impulsive or be more ambitious, or you know you might have to work with your mental health to kind of get out of your head if you have too much anxiety about things, or anxiety that leads to procrastination, and depressed mood that leads to low motivation. Like it's hard to like work and be like intellectual and like driven when you've got other stuff going on. Like you got to kind of manage that too. um but yeah, for myself, I would say the things I work on are stimulating. Not every single piece of everything I do every day is stimulating. Some things I have to do just for cash, some things I have to do just for SEO, some things I slack on completely because I really don't want to do them. Rewarding, I get a lot of reward out of problem solving. So even like I said, like if I'm gonna live stream, once I figure out how to do it, that's the rewarding part for me and the learning process. I also like documenting learning processes. Some things I learn for the sake of learning so I can share with other people and, provide education about that. Um, and yeah, I'd say most of the things I do reflect my values. Um, what I value is my own energy. Um, I think that's what I like the most about, you know, having my own path versus working for a 9 to 5, having to go to a certain place when I'm told I have to be there, do the job that somebody says I need to do when I don't want to do it, and them saying that I have to, even if I don't feel like it. But I was kind of raised in that culture, and I was kind of trained in that culture. And the mental health field is not the easiest of fields, and that's why a lot of people don't go into it because they don't want to, because it's a lot to deal with. It's a lot to deal with other people's mental health as well as dealing with your own mental health all day every like you're basically dealing with mental health all day every day, you know um for the most part. um if you're not interested in mental health, it's kind of hard to go into it because you're really going to be dealing with it all the time. um the harder a job is, the more self-care you have to kind of practice, to be able to kind of function in that world. um 18, the last one. I pursue mentally stimulating interests and hobbies. I would say that's almost a weakness of mine. I do pursue them, but the reason why I would say it's almost a weakness is because it's kind of hard for me to not do them. Like, I really don't get as much joy out of just sitting around consuming. Like, I'll watch movies, I'll watch YouTube, I'll watch stuff. I'm not saying I never watch anything, because I do. I watch a lot of stuff. I consume a lot of content. But I don't know if that, I mean, it gives me motivation and ideas, and kind of like I'm interested in some, like, kind of sparks like an interest for me. And then I usually like to work on stuff. So, you know, like, I go through phases where I don't have intellectual activities that I'm doing too much. Um, but usually I do enjoy working on stuff. I want to work on stuff. Um, it's something that I try to strive to do. Um, and sometimes maybe I should slow it down because it's not always helpful to just always be like creating stuff, and working on stuff. But and I'd say intellectually, it's kind of hard for me to focus sometimes. It is kind of like an anxiety response, but I do have a hard time focusing. I'm kind of like not really able to focus too good. Um, I don't find it easy to focus all the time. Um, like sometimes I'll think I'm working on something, and then by the end of the day, I'm like, what did I do? Like, I did all these bits and pieces of all these things, but I never finished the first thing I set out to do. If I'm just gonna write SEO content, the next thing I knew, no, I'm on the back end, like, you know, like editing, like HTML and doing all this other weird stuff, and it's like I'll spend all my energy doing something that wasn't really in the game plan for the day sometimes. Um, and so yeah, that's definitely a struggle. It's not so much of a struggle that I never reach my goals, but I think sometimes I reach goals slower because I kind of fall off from one part of the plan and start just like doing all kinds of other stuff. Um, and I don't really catch myself doing it right away sometimes too. So that's it for now. We still have emotional, social, and spiritual left to go, and then the plan that we're going to create based on all of this. Um, Getting a little late in the morning. It's 8:15 a.m. I've been recording since like 6:21 a.m. So I've almost been recording for 2 hours, which was pretty much my goal this morning. Getting in about 2 hours before breakfast and get in quite a few more hours before lunch, and then after lunch, a couple hours, and I'm done for the day. I like my days to start early. I woke up just a few minutes before 5 a.m. and then I laid there till like a little after 6 a.m. and I realized I wasn't gonna sleep anymore, so I was like, let me just get up. Um, I don't want to waste the whole day and just let me just get up. So I'm up and at 'em. Um, Other than my throat feeling kind of dry, I'm feeling pretty good. Um, but I am kind of a little hungry, so I'm gonna go deal with my hunger and then deal with the rest of the tasks I need to complete for the day. And with that, thanks for listening.